Good afternoon. Welcome to Uncommon Sense, episode 89, with my special guest star, Paul Barrett. Good afternoon, Paul.
Hello, Dean. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. It took 89 episodes, I think, to get you along to Uncommon Sense. So you've been waiting a long time in the queue. However, you started Uncommon Sense in the first iteration maybe 10 years ago. Tell us about.
That's right. And I think when you say this is episode 89, you're not counting about the first 15 or 20 episodes.
Not in the first iteration, absolutely.
No, exactly right. So Uncommon Sense started back in about 2014-15 as a live event where I would find somebody who had a really interesting story to talk about, and then I would invite people in to hear about the story and the experiences. It was a bit like a Parkinson's where we'd sit up the front on stools and I'd ask them questions. We had Tony Berg, who was the fellow who started Macquarie Bank. We had another fellow, Dean, you'll be able to remember his name, who was the first guy to cross the Simpson Desert by foot. We had another fellow who was a very experienced businessman who told us all about lean startups, and they were a lot of fun. Back then, though, it was much harder than having to just click on a video link. We had to send out invites. We had to make up name tags and go and buy the wine and the nibblies and book a room.
Absolutely. And it was an events business. And
right.
We did look forward to, and we had financial planning clients as well as advisors and other people from the industry attending there. And it was a great networking event as well. Obviously, then it took a pause for a long period of time. And then Craig and I brought it back with our fortnightly podcast, which are up to episode 89. Paul, we're here today to talk a little bit about the annual planning day that the Wealth Network does each and every year. It's at the end of July because working with financial advisors, we know that 30 June is quite busy. So our annual planning is always, and our quarterly planning is always shifted by a month to take into account of that. And so the annual planning day is our face-to-face event that we do for all of our clients, and everyone came into Sydney, and a few we had online as well. So we've been having that hybrid event, and we had people joining us from Queenstown and from Singapore online as well, which was amazing. And so today we just want to go through a little bit about the structure and things we discussed at annual planning, just to give people a little insight into what happened.
It's my favourite day of the year, Dean, I have to say.
Oh, very good. So tell us a little bit about the first session, like in terms of how we always get started. You and I have been obviously doing this for our business as well as our clients now for probably close to 10 years as well. What's the warm-up that gets us all ready to go?
So the thing that we always do is our personal best and our business best, and also what we want to get out of the day. So everybody has 5 or 10 minutes to write down their own personal best and business best and what they're trying to get out of the day. And then we go around the room and we read those out. At least 12 plus businesses in the room, often with multiple owners or advisors from each business. And so it's lovely to hear something that's going on in the personal lives of all of those people, because ultimately we are running our businesses for lots of different stakeholders, but one of the important stakeholders is the advisor and their family. So to hear a little bit about that makes it all a bit more real and keeps us focused on the end game. And then we also learn about one of the best business things that's happened in each business. And again, when you hear 12 or 14 or 16 or 20 of those business bests, it just sparks your creativity around, oh, we've either done that and that's been successful, or hey, maybe that's something we should be thinking about. So that's really good. And then we go on to what are people getting out of the day, or what do they want to get out of the day? And so often it's about people just lifting their minds out of the day-to-day minutiae of giving advice and running a practice and all of that, and just saying, wow, I'd love to just take a deep breath and recalibrate, re-get my clarity and focus. And overwhelmingly at the end of every day, people go, I got what I wanted.
Yeah, amazing. And I think one of the reasons why we talk about reflection, so the business best and the personal best, is we forget about the effort that we've put into the past as in how far we've come. So if we just think about the business best for a moment, that idea that it took us a long time to change, whether we put in a technology, bought a business, changed a process, etc. Takes a lot of effort to change. And so when you can think about and write down some of those business bests, it actually forces you to look back over that past 12 months and really understand we got things done. And great context for annual planning day, because we're trying to plan what's going to come for the next 12 months. But we really forget the journey of changing a business and improving a business over time. And that reflection lets us do that. Shifting gears a little bit, Paul, the next thing is obviously starting to analyze, once again, the past and the future of the business in order to get us ready for the day. So the first thing that we often do is review the past 12 months. And so what are a couple of things that we make sure we tick off when we are actually reviewing the last 12 months in the business?
And the first thing we do is we just review the business plan. And the business plan is made up of what is our purpose, what are our values, what is our niche, what's our marketing strategy. And at every quarterly day, but equally at the annual day, we just go around and within each business, read out those things and say, do we still agree to that element of the business plan? And it's a verbal recommitment of everybody around the table to going, yes, that is correct. And just doing that, rather than having that document with all of those special things sitting in a drawer, which doesn't get looked at for 3 years, actually recommitting to it every 30 days, but more importantly, annually, is really important. And if anything comes up that is not quite right, then that becomes an issue to be solved either on the day or down the track. So there's those sort of directional value things, really important. And then we go into the numbers. And the numbers are not just dollar numbers. It can be things like, what do we want our headcount to be? Have a business review document. What do we want the score to be? It's got to be 80 plus. If we have a net promoter score, what score do we want that? If we've got a staff satisfaction survey, what number do we want those things to be? So that there's a quantifiable target for non-financial things, but those things that are equally important to focusing our effort and running a good quality business. It could be staff turnover, those sort of things. But then once we've reviewed those non-financial numbers, then we go through what did we achieve in terms of new revenue, whether that's ongoing new revenue or one-off revenue. What was our total revenue? What was our profit margin? If somebody has debt in their business, what was the debt level and was there a debt reduction target? And the annual day is that chance to look back over the previous 4 quarters, because you should have been reviewing it every quarter. We manage them every month, but more of a focus every quarter. And so, the annual day is all about reviewing how you went against any of those numbers. And if they were achieved or they weren't achieved, what were the key drivers behind the successes or the failures?
Yep, absolutely. And on all of our business plans, we have this 10-year goal for the business, and we interchange it. Some of us call it the BHAG of a big, hairy, audacious goal, or some simply use the 10-year vision when we first get started. And the other thing that happens that I like each and every year, Paul, is that the 10-year vision actually gets closer each and every year. So this concept whereby when we do business planning, you're not setting a 10-year vision that is always a 10-year vision, because you're not making progress towards it as a result. And so we're actually doing the opposite, that every year we get together and have these discussions. It's then the 9-year vision or the 8-year vision or the 7-year vision. So it's coming closer towards you, which is creating that tension, because you're either on track or off track, but we create that tension to keep the focus around what it is that we want to head on. How did you feel when we got closer and closer to the 10-year numbers, Paul?
It is really exciting, typically because when you have such a focus on these things, I suppose in our experience, it's been exciting because we're either meeting or exceeding them earlier than what we've been planning.
Average, good.
And that's really exciting. Me, as a person in our business who is constantly looking at the numbers and constantly reviewing the forecasts and plans, I do get those moments of, whoa, okay, we're a little bit off track here. And very quickly, within 1 or 2 months, we can see whether that issue was an anomaly or whether it's something that's starting to grow and therefore needs action. Absolutely. I love looking at the big picture and the vision and the achievement, because even when you're getting closer, you might be beating the on the journey target, but you haven't actually reached the target yet.
Yeah.
You got to be careful about, what do we call that? Aspirational ticking.
Aspirational ticking. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So after we've gone through the business plan as part of our work, and everyone in our community is doing this work live on the day. So it's not a lecture, it's an actual roll your sleeves up, getting work done a day. Now, one of the big parts of our business is we run this thing that we call the issues list of all the different things that are going on in our business, both day to day and throughout the year. And this list gets built up of all the great ideas, all the problems and challenges within the business. And both from an annual planning and quarterly planning, we're triaging these to not distract ourselves. But on quarterly planning, we've got a list of 20 or 30 or 40 things that we need to go through. So, Paul, can you tell us firstly about how and why this works really well in the business? Like, why does the issues, storing things on the issues list, why does that work? What's the discipline around that? And you can use me as a case study. And then secondly, we'll talk about the action that we go through as a result.
Yeah. And the starting point for Dean and I going down this route of focusing on managing the business was that we'd been in business for probably nearly 10 years and we loved working together, but we would have 100 great ideas. And we used to say, oh, here's another balloon. So it felt like we were riding our idea on a balloon and then letting the balloon go. And we looked up at the ceiling and there were hundreds of balloons up there and nothing was happening on them. And the system that we're running, because you've got a 10-year, 3-year, and a 1-year plan, those things lay out your priorities. But that doesn't mean you don't have lots of ideas still. And so a bit like financial planners, what we have to do is focus our clients' efforts on their highest priority issues. What we needed was a system where we could keep capturing our good ideas, but constantly reviewing them against our priorities to say, do we need to action this now, or do we need to park it somewhere and then come back and look at it when we're resetting our priorities? So the software that we have is live. All of your leaders in the business have access to it. There's a particular place where they put an idea in every day of the year. They can put an idea on there. And then every week we look at that list and we go, does that issue need to be dealt with now? Is it in accordance with our priorities for either this quarter or this year? Or is it a good idea, but it's just not urgent? And there's a special place for the good ideas that are not urgent. So we remove them from our day-to-day focus. It's like cleaning out your email inbox. You're not having to reread every email in there 20 or 30 times before you get to it. We put it in a special place. We know where it is. We don't have to expend any energy on it. But then every quarter and every annual year, we go back through that cumulative list and say, is it still a good idea? Because if it is, we keep it. Is it an idea that we thought might have been good at the time, but now we go, nah, it's not a good idea? If that's the case, we kill it. Have we got a number of ideas on this list, which are really all similar ideas around the same theme? And if that's the idea, then we combine them. We might take 3 or 4 different ideas around the same issue, but we'll combine them into the one issue. So that's called keep, kill, and combine. So we're pruning that parking lot every quarter. And that means that either once we've pruned that list and we've got them down to the ones we want to keep, we're again assessing whether that list is something we want to do now in the next quarter, or is it still a good idea, but it's still in the parking lot.
Absolutely. And so we avoid the distractions that can come up from as business owners of these bright, shiny toys. My reflection of it personally was that this stopped me getting distracted with a new piece of tech, as an example, and wasting time this quarter on that particular issue. Whereas we put it on the issues list, we defer it for 90 days or less before we get to talk about it at a business level with our business shareholders. And then we're able to make the right decision as to whether we want to invest time and effort into that project, or we're going to keep it and invest time and effort into it later. And so it created an accountability at the leadership level, because we weren't wasting time on projects that we might have thought was a good idea, but the business collectively didn't think it was a good idea. And so we're now focused, and all of our clients are now focused on completing whatever the priorities are for the quarter without adding new things onto their plate in terms of a next new shiny toy or next new thing to get solved. And so this issues list is such a great parking lot of all the great ideas. But then through quarterly and annually planning, we're pulling some of them off the list and then making them quarterly goals. So can you, Paul, tell us a little bit about the 1 year goals and then the 90-day goals and how that links together?
Yeah, so really a business should have, maybe, depending on how big the business is and what the resources are, but say for a 2 or 3 advisor business, it should probably have 3 to 5 core goals, which are important enough that they're going to move the needle, either immediately or pretty quickly. And what that means is that once you've got that identified, remember you've got a 10-year context. Our annual goals have been set within the context of our 10-year goals and our 3-year goals. And so what that means is when we're talking about the next 90 days, which is the next most important 90 days in the journey of the business, we look at our annual goals and say, is this issue going to move us forward in one of our annual goals, or is it somehow slipped in here as a distraction from those 12-month goals? And so therefore, if that's the case, we need to repark it, because maybe it's going to be important for next year's goals, but it's not this year's goal. So really, all of your quarterly goals should be related to achieving your annual goals.
Yep. Absolutely. And so that then allows us to break everything down into that week by week action in order to get the goals done. Definitely our other reflection of quarterly planning overall is you can come up with the quarterly objectives of the business. You can come up with quarterly goals. We need to do a really good job, as we say, of defining what done looks like, because 90 days is actually a long time as well. You can even forget what done looks like in that micro part of the process in terms of what you want to get done in 90 days. And then we break that project down to do something each and every week. We probably had some deadlines back in the day, Paul, where we were rushing in the last week for our homework to be due at the end of the quarter. And that always results in subpar outcomes, because you're rushing and you're not necessarily getting stakeholder engagement and group ideas and feedback, because you're just doing it right at the last minute. Those components are what we enforce, but that's if we go back to the Rockefeller habits and some other really old processes of business coaching, quarterly work and quarterly priorities is pretty common. And probably the biggest thing around that is the accountability at the end of the day to make sure that those things are getting done. We can all have great ideas, but execution is key.
And best practice there, and this can seem a bit obsessive compulsive kind of thing, but if you know what done looks like, and you can break that down into 12 weekly goals so that you get to the end goal, and you put those into the software so you know each weekly goal, and then in every weekly meeting, are you on track or off track for that weekly goal, or am I pushing the carpet forward by not doing my weekly elements, and the carpet is just getting, the mountain you've got to climb in the last 2 or 3 weeks is becoming ridiculous. And so that's where we have then the group sessions on a Monday, particularly the Monday, but also the Friday, where we go, okay, what are your 5 most important business issues for the week? And they should be related to your goals. if you have identified what that goal is for the week, then put the time in your calendar now on a Monday of when you're going to do that, and don't compromise it. That's a non-negotiable. No meeting is booked in there. Nothing overdoes it. If something else comes up, you've got to fit that in somewhere else in your diary. You don't compromise on achieving the weekly milestone in your quarterly goal.
Absolutely. And that's the old saying of working in your business versus on your business. And so as small business owners, we all know that we need to do both of those. And someone coming in and saying, oh, just make sure you work on the business, a little bit too cliche. However, the simple act of making sure you've created a diary invitation for yourself to attend that meeting is actually really important to make sure that you and actually the rest of your team respect that time that you've created for the business. It's not for you to check emails and return phone calls. It's not free time, but creating that structure in the micro pit of one day of the week for an hour is really important.
That's the important thing, that if you do it, if you break it down into the 12 weekly goals, it only takes half an hour or an hour a week to get that done. Whereas if you push it to the end of the quarter, it might take you, that's 12 hours, that's nearly 2 whole days. But if part of the process is reliant on achieving an earlier part of the process and you haven't given yourself time to achieve that earlier milestone, then even if you spend 2 days at the end of the month, you won't get it done because you haven't spread it out appropriately. Yeah, much better to do 1 hour a week than 12 hours in the last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Paul, in the second half of the session, we had a couple of special guest stars that have been both guests of UncommonCents and really close to us in terms of some of the business results that we get. So we had Lisa Greensill come and join us. She flew down from the beach and took us through a session which is all about making sure that your business front end in the category of marketing is up to standard. And we had that story that went around the internet from a financial advisor perspective, whereby an advisor lost a high net wealth client because the client's children Googled the advisor and found nothing about the advisor online. And so that's a story that's going around whereby the children now are helping their parents assess the quality of their advisor simply by what's out there online. Paul, tell us a bit about what you learned from Lisa at the annual planning. So Paul has some slow internet for some reason. He is in Sydney. But a couple of things about Lisa that we thought was really valuable. I'll just turn his screen off until he comes back on.
I'm back.
He might be back now. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you.
I heard anything you said, but it was excellent. But you can start again.
That's all right. So the first thing we've learned, and as per that story, is that your online visual presence is now a housekeeping issue. You have to have a good visual online presence because the younger generation now, it's one of their credentialization things. And very few people now will approach your business without doing their first step of due diligence, which is checking your online visual presence. And so that's one part of it. So you have to have an online visual presence. One of the things that working with Lisa does also is it really focuses your effort on your messaging. So what is it that we focus on? What are our, and this is one of the things we have in our business plan, is what are our 3 uniques and what is our purpose? And you could think that all financial planning businesses are the same, but they're not. You might have a preference for insurance. You might have a preference for investments. You might have a preference for SMSFs. You might have a preference for younger people or retirees. Your message, you need to get your authentic message across because you don't want to waste your time with people who are looking for somebody else. So you want to be attracting your ideal clients. And to do that, you want to have your authentic message out there and you want it to be consistent across all of your visual messaging identities, whether that's your website, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Facebook, whether that's Instagram. And you also want your messaging to then go through all of your printed material and marketing collateral. That actually takes quite a bit of time. And you need to work with a professional like Lisa to take your raw ideas and massage them into something clear, concise, consistent, coherent, visually appealing. And we recently went through that exercise again with Lisa, and that probably took us 4 months between starting with refreshing all of our messaging and then pushing that through to all of the places that we want to be seen. So absolutely critical.
And so the action item for everyone to do is Googling yourself, in terms of Google yourself and see the things that come up and make sure that they're consistent. We would say on brand, but make sure they're consistent. And so we don't necessarily control this, but everyone has an advisor ratings page. So if you've got it, and therefore it comes up in Google when you search for it. And if you haven't taken control of it, put the details, updated the photo, put all those kind of things, it's a piece of media that's out there in the internet that we could control. And if it was done better, it forms part. Same with making sure that you've got some consistent information on LinkedIn, on Google, and you've got your Google business page set up. These are the things now that are the minimum standards to play. So I know today that if you can't get a review on a financial advisor, there's no reviews on Google, there's no reviews on advisor ratings. People are making the decision not to work with the business before they've even interacted with the business. The big call out was that when advisors are missing the opportunity to get in front of a client because the client themselves are self-selecting before they've had the opportunity to meet you. And probably that for those people that go, I get all my referrals from clients or accountants, the reality is, what do you do when you get a referral to a specialist? You still Google them. Okay, so how many referrals are coming from your clients or accountants where the person's getting your name from a trusted source, they're Googling you and underwhelmed by the response and they don't call? Okay, so sure, you may get business from referrals, but the reality is we still need to have all these things in place so that we get confidence in that handover.
And equally, Dean, particularly for some of us older advisors who grew up, less technology when we were young, we used to say all of my new clients come from referrals and therefore my website's not important. But now we're saying, yes, even referral people will select or deselect you based on your website. But also now you can get new, good quality clients who haven't been referred to you, but through your website. And we've been pleasantly surprised with our website that we're now getting high net worth, either families or professionals coming to us, having not been referred by a human, but having found us through the internet. Yep. So definitely, if you don't have that good on-message visual presence, you're missing out either through people selecting out or people not being able to find you that might otherwise have wanted to work with your business.
Absolutely. And so, Paul, you said something interesting about showing up as your authentic self. And that's a good segue, which I've created myself, obviously, into our next guest that came along as well, Cam Fink. And shout out to Cam. He's been a guest on the Uncommon Sense podcast before, as well as his brother Cole. So we keep it close in the family. But Cam took us through giving us confidence around video and showing up on video as a way of connecting with the audience or your audience. What did you take out of his time with us?
And look, I've been exposed to Cam over the last few years, and I've particularly watched you blossom as an internet sensation as a result of his coaching. But yeah, we all have that inner voice telling us that I look bad, I sound bad, I won't be as good as somebody else, I will fail, etc. And that inner voice can just hold us back. But what will definitely reinforce within you is that you certainly won't get any better if you don't start trying. and that you'll certainly be better on your 100th video than you were at your first video. And so just get out there and try. Now absorb so much video content, and so little of it is of that Channel 9 news quality reporter kind of thing. So much of it now is just people relating their experiences at the time they're having them, whether it's travel blogs or clothes or other stuff. And so there's not this need for a sanitized version of a video. People actually buy real humans that come across on video the same way they come across in a meeting or the pub or wherever else. People buy from people they like and trust. And if you are your sanitized version, you're not really giving out anything about yourself that can create trust, because it's a sanitized version. And when you turn up live, you've still got to do all of that stuff again. And there may well be a disconnect between your online presence and how you turn up. And you don't want to be wasting your time by attracting the wrong people. Just get out there, be your authentic self. And if your authentic self is consistent with your visual presentation and your face-to-face presentation, it's so much more powerful than trying to pretend to be something that you're not. It's just a waste of time. My takeaway was, don't overthink it. Don't listen to the little voice. You don't need to be anything other than your real self, and your real self will attract the right people to you and dissuade people who are not going to be right for you anyway. So,
absolutely. And those people don't care anyway. Like, the biggest thing for us was all about that people will watch it if they want to learn your content or learn your story. And lots of people that aren't right for you will just move on. So it's not that someone that hates you is going to watch your entire video and then troll you in this context. We're actually more likely that those people will just move on, and the people that want to hear your content, your story, just like people watching Uncommon Sense live, thank you to the people that are. They like it because they're listening now. If we weren't interesting, Paul, they would have moved on. There's no issue with that. So listen to the one listener that's waited right to the end. I don't know who you are, but thank you for being there right to the end. I'll send you a bottle of wine if you want to let me know who you are. But no, the point is about showing up and being...
Mum.
My mum watches every week too, Paul.
Yeah,
we've always got two. We've always got two attendees. But yeah, so Cam got us out of our comfort zone by making people step up straight away, get their phone out in their hand, record a video. And it was great because I had guys running around the place, all recording content, and they were able to take that, put it straight up on LinkedIn and tell their story of the day or what's going on in their world and how that will relate to their current and future clients.
Yep.
So that's it, Paul. We've made it through 37 minutes. So that's plenty of time for a break. And so that will be it for us today in episode 89. So Paul, thanks for being the special guest star and continuing the journey with us, and look forward to seeing all the audience next time for number 90. Cheers.
I'm hoping if that one person is still here that they hit the like button so I get asked back.
Oh, we've already stopped the stream, Paul, so they wouldn't have heard that. Thanks very much. See you next time.
Bye.